Okay, so this is just a continuation on the series I've been doing on the police and what kind of psychopathy, should I say, is what sits beneath anyone who believes that they actually have the right to do that which is immoral, which you as an individual, I or you could never get away with. Yet because they put on a costume, they believe that that all of a sudden now grants them that right. So we're going to get into the psychopathy of that and actually how the structure that's in place makes sure that this will happen, and how the people, and that's you and me and all of us, who don't take any action to let the people who believe themselves that have authority know the truth about what the correct system is we're meant to be living under, who stay silent when they have the opportunity to speak. And the more that people come and do that, the quicker this thing comes down, because lies can only continue while people allow them to continue and accept them. But once you mentally make the switch, even if you're being forced through violence to actually comply, you won't do it willingly, and you'll be always looking for a way to make sure it ends. That's different to the ones who willingly give their time to it, and there's far too many of them. And sadly, the majority of the people who watch my videos are one of them, because I had that proved the last video I made. Well, if it's not the last one that you're seeing now, it's the video 132, right? Put a call to action out, and barely anybody did anything about it. They just came and commented. So people would rather just complain about their cage and whinge and howl than actually do something to remove it once and for all. So we're going to get into the psychopathy of the very people who do this as a job, and the psychopathy of people who allow it, which is everyone else. And that's because of the belief that this is somehow, you won't be safe unless you've got these kind of narcissists roaming the streets and taking care of everybody, because you can't do it for yourself. So let's get into the psychopathy first, and I'm going to show real life evidence of how that's still alive today, even 3 years after this whole COVID disaster started, and they started getting really extreme with their violence, because nothing's changed, guys. And you're about to see that soon. This is Larkin Rose. I've played a fair few videos of his throughout, mostly to do with police, because he's just brilliant at nailing it. If you're really interested in actually raising your awareness, your consciousness about the true nature of reality, I highly recommend you looking up Larkin Rose. You can see his YouTube channel, just type in his name. Also looking up one of his books, there's plenty, but I'm just going to use one now, and that's The Most Dangerous Superstition, because he's quoting from it here. And then you will be able to see things in ways that you haven't even thought of, which is going to free your mind, like literally free it. But that's only if you want to and you have the will to. If you're still stuck in your prejudice and biases because you've got that fear, we can't be safe unless we, have other people taking responsibility for what really belongs to us, and giving them that, and just allowing us to be controlled by them. Well, then this is going to have no value for you.
It is very telling that many modern law enforcers quickly become angry, even violent, when an average citizen simply speaks to the officer as an equal, instead of assuming the tone and demeanor of a subjugated underling. Again, this reaction is precisely the same and has the same cause as the reaction a slave master would have to an uppity slave speaking to him as an equal. There are plenty of examples depicted in numerous police abuse videos on the internet of supposed representatives of authority going into a rage and resorting to open violence simply because someone they approached spoke to them as one adult would speak to another, instead of speaking as a subject would speak to a master. The state mercenaries refer to this lack of groveling as someone having an attitude. In their eyes, someone treating them as mere mortals, as if they are on the same level as everyone else, amounts to showing disrespect for their alleged authority. Similarly, anyone who does not consent to be detained, questioned, or searched by officers of the law is automatically perceived by the state mercenaries as some sort of troublemaker who has something to hide. Again, the real reason such lack of cooperation annoys authoritarian enforcers is because it amounts to people treating them as mere humans instead of treating them as superior beings, which is what they imagine themselves to be. These psychological phenomena are universal. Anybody given power over somebody else is going to turn into a sadistic bastard, and it's gonna rot their soul.
All right, so I'm going to leave it there. That pretty much nails it on one level. And now I'm going to show you actual evidence of how that's actually still alive today. This is a recent recording that just came out, I think it was on the 29th of July, 2023. So timestamp it for when you're watching this. So nothing's changed, guys. It's, just because you're not getting bullets shot at you this time around, if you're in Victoria, doesn't mean the whole structure is no different. Even though they put the call out that there's all these, police that are behaving badly, stuff like that, we're not getting to the core of it, and people are not calling it out. And while nobody calls it out, the true heart of it, and he's just really explained it right there, right? It's going to keep continuing because you are allowing it to happen by staying silent and just complaining to your friends and anyone else on social media who's in your echo chamber, right? If that's all you're doing, you're still allowing it to go on. And, I did put a video out that had a call to action and nobody responded, to 2 people or something like that. Everyone else just started like whinging or howling or telling people what the right thing was and all this other stuff, but nobody came out and did anything that really mattered when they had the opportunity to do it. So now I'm going to just bring in a real life scenario that happened the other day. I'm about to hit play. You'll be able to see exactly what Larkin just described a moment ago about being detained. It's just going to, you're about to see it happen.
Where's the victim? There's no victim. The statute says you don't need a victim.
So he's saying, where's the victim? They usually do that one. That's what the people have been taught to say, there's no victim, yada, yada. And they don't give a stuff about that because the underlying cause isn't being looked at. So they're just going to go and do what they want.
For a sticker, you're doing this. If you're not going to tell us who you are, you will be arrested. Please confirm your ID.
For a sticker?
For a sticker, don't go there. If I hurt anyone, it doesn't matter hurting anyone. You can't do that.
It's a sticker.
I'll ask you one more time. If you're not going to provide any
It's a sticker.
identification,
It's a sticker.
if you're not going to provide us any ID, you are, you'll be under arrest.
It's a sticker.
Is that how low you've gone?
It's a sticker.
Do you see the belly on that, guys? I'm going to say a fair few bellies here. So there's a picture of health right here. This is what that's the level of what we call law enforcement is at these days. So all you're getting from the people is heroes, and you're going to hear shame, they're going to point the finger, yada, yada. But none of them are actually going to do anything that matters and actually point out the real truth of why this is even allowed to occur. And that's what just keeps continuing. Nothing changes. This will just keep happening until people actually understand why this is even the case. And that's what is the sickness so far, right? We're just in a serious mental illness. And that's the bulk of the population, not just these guys. They're just a product of it. It's because people allow it, and they actually have this way to contort their minds to believe that somehow this is how safety is the only way that can occur. Can't happen any other way. So while you're watching this, now I want you to imagine that these costumes they're wearing, right, they're just something you can purchase at a $2 shop, right? Now, if you saw people wearing some weird costumes, just show up to somebody else and tell them, if you don't give me a name, etc., I'm going to now, use force and violence to do what I want with you until you give me your name, right? Would you see a group of people just allowing it to happen just because they're wearing this weird costume you've never seen before? No, most people would stop it. But how is it the same activity, right? No different. They're allowing it to occur only by, the only difference is they're going to hurl some insults and things like that. But otherwise, they still just stop and let it happen. What kind of mental illness is that? This is what we really need to start looking at. So there's going to take your vaccinations, right? Do you think that humiliating them is going to change anything, right? This is that whole powerlessness. When you feel powerless, you just start throwing out accusations. That's the best you have, right? That's like a total ego thing. But they really don't understand why it is that this is even happening and how it is they're part of it. just fast forwarding here, guys. You know that he's covering his name. So, you know, there's opportunity here. It's being wasted. So now he's even giving his name. As you can see, he's stopped resisting. He's like, well, now I'll just give you what you want. There's that beautiful picture of health.
Judgment Day is coming, boys. Judgment Day is coming. Judgment Day is coming. Judgment Day is coming.
All right, this is my personal favorite. This guy here. Have a look at this. All right, if you blew on him with a bit of extra breath, this guy would fall over. Just couldn't help but say that, right? Anyway, so they walk off, yada yada, and they keep yelling at him, etc. And then what's happened, right? They keep to do what they want. And so there's Larkin giving you one version of how it is that, you know, the sickness is allowed to continue. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you some more of what he says. Before I do, I just want to share a story, a personal one. I remember speaking to someone who has a job where they're actually a benefactor of what these people do. And I remember saying to them, you know, or showing them evidence that Victoria Police in this particular incident, they actually have, their corporation has an ABN. They looked it up, I was surprised I actually did, and they saw that was a fact. And their response to me was, I don't care that they're a corporation. I just care that they keep me safe. See that self-indulgence? And that's the heart of it, right? While people still believe that safety is the only way to safety is to have this as the way to do it, we're going to keep staying in slavery. You know, as long as you believe that that's the compromise you're willing to make, as long as nothing bad happens to you, you know, and you're a good person, if it happens to anyone else, that's because they're bad, right? That's the mental gymnastics people do. So even if you're standing for your rights, you must be bad because it didn't happen to me. So, you know, they're keeping me safe. That's the sickness that's in play here, right? Okay, so I'm going to come back with Larkin now. Okay, here we go with Larkin again. He's going to give a lot more depth to expand understanding of why we as a society are really sick and what we allow to happen and the consequence of that.
This is talking not about the lawmakers now, but about the enforcers, the police. Quote from my book. The primary concept that the enforcer is taught and the primary concept that he must accept in order to do his job is that as a representative of authority, he is above the common folk and has the moral right to forcibly control them. In short, he is taught that his badge and his position make him the rightful master of all the average people. Once he is convinced of that lie, it should be expected that he will despise the average citizen and treat him with contempt. In the same way and for the same reason that a slave owner will treat his slaves not as human beings, but as property, whose feelings and opinions matter no more than the feelings and opinions of the master's cattle or his furniture.
So there you have it, guys. That's why they've got no feeling for anyone. When they have got you in their sights as that's you're their victim and you're the target, they cease to have any care for you, right? Because that's the training they're given by the sheer fact that society allows it. They allow them to be elevated to a position where they are allowed to do that which no one else is, and therefore they are above you. And until people start actually coming together and saying, no, that's not correct, here's the truth, and showing them, nothing's going to change, right? And now you can see, if you really start looking, how that whole sovereign citizen thing came about, because all you're doing when you're challenging them, right, is you're seeing them as an equal, and they can't have that. So what do? They invented this term sovereign citizen to try and now get people to believe that there's something defective about you for actually standing up for your rights and wanting to be equal, as is the natural position, right? That's the mental illness, right? So now I'm going to show you videos I've shown before when I did the sovereign citizen hit pieces, and now you can see with a whole different perspective, which I didn't cover before, as to what actually happens after you've watched this and had that explained to you. All right, so I've played this before, but hopefully now you get a different perspective on actually, you'll even hear how the media places it. Once you listen to what Larkin's explained and you really understand it, now you can see the real sickness that's in play here.
You might have seen them online. They call themselves sovereign citizens, political activists wreaking havoc across Australia, refusing to comply with government officials, including the police, deciding which laws they want to obey and which ones to ignore.
If you do not provide details, you will be arrested.
We don't have to give you any details.
Not in your
I
jurisdiction.
will break the window.
There is, and you will commit offence, you'll be liable for it. It is absolutely trespass. You got no jurisdiction here, bros. Because if you touch this car, you're committing an offence.
Cancel registration.
You're committing offence by standing here.
I'm not.
Yes, you are. You don't have any jurisdiction on this land. Oh, look out.
You're under arrest.
Yikes. Done with that conversation.
That was one of these incidents that brought this to our national attention.
So there you have it, guys. They just believe they can do what they like because they've been told they're better than others, and they have no problem doing that. Doesn't matter if you record it, how many people get it on camera, doesn't matter, because there's that sickness in the mind. Now the media are all part of it, of course, because they're actually their greatest fans, because they're all part of the same control structure. But the sheer fact that they wear these costumes now that are like full military even shows the level at which they are showing you physically how much more superior they are than you. Now, before, they never used to wear anything like that, right? And most people have forgotten that at best they used to have handcuffs and maybe a gun, at best. And then all these extra things just started showing up, and very few people, you know, when they really start looking at it, have noticed when that transition happened and how they're giving you the physical version of what the sickness in the mind has accepted. And now I'm just going to finish off with Larkin explaining it one more time, but just in a different perspective, so you can really truly see what, if you do nothing and you just complain about this in your own echo chambers and social media and stuff like that, that you are actually part of this sickness, and you had an opportunity, and you still always do, to actually do something about it. It's up to you when that threshold, you know, is enough, and you go, okay, it's time for me to do something. But just remember, every minute you waste is more pain and suffering for everyone. So I'll be right back. Okay, one more from Larkin.
A quote from The Most Dangerous Superstition again. Keep in mind what you just heard Frederick Douglass describing. Law enforcers are always professional aggressors, subjugating the people to the will of the politicians by way of violence and the threat of violence. And anyone who does that, if he did not already have a certain degree of contempt and hatred for his fellow man, will almost certainly develop it. To put it another way, even the nicest, most friendly slave owner, if he continues to believe in the legitimacy of slavery and continues to practice it, will be committing evil and will inflict harm upon the people he imagines to be his rightful property. And he will naturally develop a degree of contempt toward the victims of his aggression and will behave contemptuously toward them.
So there you have it, guys. Really straightforward. If you sit here and say nothing, or you just stay in your echo chambers, complaining and howling, all the things you know, etc., while you do not let these individuals know that they are actual criminals by putting your force and weight behind it. Now, go to 132. I've shown you how you can do that. Video post 132. And if you still do nothing and you stay doing this, you are actually giving your will to this to continue. Whether you like it or not, it's not my opinion. That's just the way reality works. All I'm doing is I'm putting literacy. I'm giving literacy to that, right? That's the only difference. Your conscience knows that you have a calling to actually do something about it. And the more that you stay silent, or the more you do things that are not helpful, right, that are actually giving force and credit to the criminal system by using the legal system, by using the UCC, private and public, all that sort of PMA stuff, that's all illegitimate systems that criminals invented, right? Use any of those things, you are part of the lie. Unless you come out and speak the truth, the actual verifiable, self-evident truth that's only found in one place, unless you do that, you are part of your own enslavement. Whether you want to see it or not, that's entirely different. It doesn't change the outcome, right? You've had 3 years of doing it your way. What's happened? Still the same, nothing. I just showed you how it keeps continuing. All right, so now I'm going to show you what the actual legal system is, right? first we're going to listen to that professor guy who used to be a magistrate go off in his little tangent and try and make it look like anyone who stands up for their rights has got mental problems when it's really them who have the mental problems. So I'll be right back. This guy is going to start saying things like laws that apply to you and I, but what he doesn't explain to you is what he's talking about are not laws. It's legislation written by a pack of criminals who've elevated themselves into being your master. And that's what he's calling a law. So just so you understand what he means when he says that. So let's listen on. I'm just going to find the start button.
Can you firstly explain for us what is a sovereign citizen exactly?
There's a spectrum. On the one hand, there are those who just want to challenge the law by raising old common law doctrines and concepts of sovereignty, and that's probably a positive thing. But at the other end, there are those who simply refuse to comply with laws that apply to you and I. They see themselves as separate and different. They say that they don't consent to the jurisdiction, and by their own declaration, they're not bound by laws. So at that more extreme end, of course, that can end up being pretty dangerous, as we see in the video, but also the connections between those involved with the sovereign citizen or pseudo-law movement. And
okay, so he said pseudo-law, right? Now, all the other things he said about being dangerous and stuff, like, as you can see, with your own eyes, the only one who's being dangerous are the ones who are thick, right? The ones who are already self-haters. And the only way they can handle hating themselves is to hate on those who are actually their victims, right? They have to project it out. So, just bear in mind that that's what's actually being said here. And now I'm going to show you, Mark, and again, he's going to explain to you what the actual legal system really is. And you have a look at how many of these heroes who think they're actually, practicing common law by going into their legal system and using it, what they're really giving their energy to. So I'll be right back. Again, Larkin's going to do a sterling job. He's going to explain it. I think it's about 40 seconds long, just under. And he says it so brilliantly of what the true meaning and how the construct and why it was constructed, what the purpose of it was, this whole legal system that these criminals are defending, that magistrate, one of the biggest ones, and any other one who works in there, whether it's a barrister, any legal counsel, court clerk, right down to the admin staff, all of them are part of this massive criminal syndicate. Right now you're about to see it explained in under 40 seconds.
The whole legal system and all their written crap, the entire purpose of the written system of law is not what you were taught in school. The entire purpose of the written system of law is to pretend to the subject class that it's actually knowable and applies to everybody, and that there are principles involved, and that it's predictable, and there's fairness, and there's due process. No. There's a whole bunch of legalese noise to hide the fact that they do whatever the hell they want, and the only limitation is at what point the people will actually resist.
There you have it, guys. People are not resisting, they're actually using that criminal structure. That's one of the hardest pieces of information that I've personally found. People refuse. They just won't accept that there's no remedy in that system. They just outright refuse it. Now, if you're at the place where you're actually wanting to actually accept that there's something in the fact that this whole structure is made and designed to be rigged, and you're done with it, and you actually want to do something that's actually going to change life, right, by putting your weight behind the truth, I'm going to point to where to find that, right? I've done it in other videos, but clearly I need to keep doing it. So here we go. This is the Magna Carta 1215.com, right? Anyone who doesn't understand about the Magna Carta, it's time to really start learning. You can come here. It's got lots of stuff on it. I'm just going to take it to the action now section, where this is action you can take now. And you can see there's all these different letters to the police, to the judiciary, to any public servant, right down to a councillor, from Prime Minister right down there. That's anyone who's in the public servant, in the hierarchy, so bureaucrats, etc., department secretaries. And then you've got, if there's like anyone who's ever suffered family violence order or some version of that, intervention, protection, apprehended violence, all these different versions. You've got a letter to any criminal police that have been involved in that. Same with child protection if they've done it. Same with the courts if they've issued orders, because order following is actually one of the biggest forms of evil that exists on the planet, and pre-crime is how they do it. And then you've got to the police commissioner, anyone of any state, and then you've got one specific to Shane Patton, right? Look at 132, the video 132 I made. It explains what that's about. Just wanted to quickly show you that you have remedy. It's about you standing there, withdrawing the lie from the monolith by standing on truth. And the more people that do that, the faster this crumbles. So it's up to you whether you have the courage to come to this site, read what's there, understand it, and then put your weight behind it as an individual, not by petitions and all that kind of stuff. That's not how it's done. Is you as an individual stand in your power and send it off and watch what happens when the numbers start growing, right? Because it calls out all the lies. Those letters explicitly explain the true nature of how any kind of system where there's any service provided to the people is supposed to run, where we, the people, are in charge of it, not it of us. And that's the difference, right? If you're serious about that you are self-governing, that you are actually sovereign, that you are the only one who knows what's best for you, no one else, right? If you're serious about that, here's the place where you're going to be able to find the remedy. Nothing else is available that actually speaks the truth. This is the only place that I've found that it actually happens, because it's based on that which is self-evident and verifiable that cannot be denied. That's what truth is. All the other things are mental constructs made to look like truth, but you ask enough questions, they all start crumbling. Here, no questions can dissolve it, because you can discover it for yourself. So that's all I wanted to say on this. Now it's up to you guys to what you're going to do about it.